When should you give up on your startup dream? Just give up. When should you shut things down and just say, it's done, putting a fork in it, I'm done, not going to do it anymore? When should you give up on your startup dream? I put dream in there because it's always a dream. And that's what makes this conversation so difficult to have. And that's also the reason I bring it up. Okay. I'm going to walk you through the decision-making process, how I do it. And believe me, I've given up on many startup dreams, said, I'm done, I quit, I'm out, right? And in this video, like I said, I'm going to walk you through what is that thought process and give you some advice on when to give up. And as always, it's not easy. It is not easy at all. Let me walk you through this. So here we are. You're at a point where you're like, okay, when should I give up? How I like to think of it is when making decisions, are your decisions one-way decisions or two-way decisions? Here's how it works. So two-way decisions are decisions where you can make a decision and then if it doesn't work out, you can come back to the beginning point. It's two ways. All right. You can reverse course like a two-way highway. You say, I'm going to go down this way. And you're like, that doesn't work. And the sooner you figure it out, you make a U-turn and you bring it back. So when you're working in your startup and everything's a two-way decision, you're good. Okay. That's one signal that, hey, maybe you want to stick with it. Maybe you're feeling discouraged, like everything, you tried something and it's not working out. Try this experiment, it's not working out, but it's still a two-way decision. Nothing's fatal. You're still good. Okay. So that's a two-way decision. And we have these all the time. And the best founders actually make sure that everything's a two-way decision. All right. Now, what happens? Let's say you end up with a one-way decision. You're working in your startup and everything becomes a one-way decision. What's the one-way decision? Well, if you make the decision, you measure the consequences, and the cost of the consequences could be so severe you can't come back from it. You can't ship. It's your last $10,000, or you're signing a personal guarantee for some financing, right? And it's like, if my startup shuts down, there's no coming back from this. I am personally liable for this money that I borrow, right? So if you find a pattern that suddenly more and more things are becoming one-way decisions, like you're starting to use up your retirement that you spent years building up. Once that money is spent, it's gone. Once you spend that, liquidate that asset, it's not generating value for your company anymore. It's gone. Some of the one-way decisions consequences are like different things. If your startup takes you away from family and, different things like, and I'm not saying that you don't have one-way decisions. Sometimes there's a lot of one-way decisions, which lead to this all-in component, right? So like when you have two-way decisions, what I say is once you find out which way decision is going to go all in on it. Don't hesitate, right? I play a lot of video games, a lot of video games where competing with other people. And an advice someone gave me was like, Ed, when you're in the video game, when you decide in your brain to commit to a play in the video game, go all in, commit to the play. So act like you're all in, right? And so founders, even though they say, founders and entrepreneurs all have this all in moment, there's still a way to come back from it, but you act like you go all in. One of my all in moments was moving to China, right? And even though I was going to be spending a large amounts of my time and away from my family, different things, my kids were young enough, my wife was in support, I can always come back. I remember calling my wife sometime, and I was in some scary situations in China, and I would call her or text her, and I would say, if this doesn't work out, I know, what we're going to do. And she said, well, at least you can come back home. You'll come back home and, we'll make a plan from there. And I'm like, okay, so I'm all in on this decision. I'm going to give it my all. But, all entrepreneurs have this all in moment, but they're not to the point where it's totally detrimental, because most entrepreneurs are a lot smarter than that, right? you have a corporation and you can shut down and declare bankruptcy on the corporation, all those things. But like I said, when the cost of consequence, one-way decision, everything becomes a one-way decision and the cost of consequences are so severe. Well, get all out, okay, and live to fight another day. What do I mean by all out? I mean, get all out. Don't let it linger. Don't, because founders get in this sunk cost fallacy and say, oh, I've already spent $50,000. If I spend another $5,000, what is it going to matter? Right. And they plink away it, or they just let it linger. I say, get all out, shut it down completely, walk away, say, I'm going to have nothing to do with it, whatsoever. And that's what I've had to do. I've had conversations with my wife and I say, okay, if we shut it down and I get all out, we're losing things like, any assets value that we've created. I had a real personal situation where I say, we could go live in a cardboard box. I could work at McDonald's, but we're going to lose out on retirement and, all those things. But the emotional cost was too much. And my wife and I, we agreed that, okay, we're willing to do that. Get all out. Done. And I spent about 2 years being completely unemployed because as a founder, I was not employable. It was the best decision I made because then I could rebuild with my family and do all the things that, I was losing out on. The consequences were stacking up because I was making all these one-way decisions and they were not working out for me. So I get all out. I'm done, with it. And believe me, there's going to be so much temptation to say, oh, let's just let it linger and, let's keep 1/2 foot in. I'm like, no, I am all out. I am done completely. Don't talk to me about it type thing. Because by that time, you need the rest. You need to reset. Okay. My co-founder, great partner, working with 25 years, he would say, Ed, what happens is we throw rocks into the pond, right? And they create ripples and you just keep throwing rocks in the pond at it. You're just like, I just got to keep throwing rocks. I'm going to eventually get it. And the ripples hit the other ripples. And pretty soon, you got this real tumultuous thing. And next thing you know, you're drowning in the pond, you're splashing and you're flailing. And he would tell me, Ed, we just have to let the rocks settle to the bottom of the pond. Let the rocks get to the bottom of the pond and don't throw any more rocks, get all out. And then we're done. Just don't even throw one single rock. Just let all the rocks settle. Deal with the consequences of shutting things down and live to fight another day. I can't tell you how many times I lost this skirmish. Okay. Another video game term, lost a skirmish, the engagement. I'm going to withdraw it. I'm going to live to fight another day. And that's what you have to do. Okay. Now, this is a framework to decide, should I shut everything down using two-way decisions or one-way decisions? And you're going to know, on the Startup Therapy podcast, the other day, I heard a really great metaphor that Ryan Rattan, one of the co-founders of startups.com, work with him every day, love the guy. He brought up and he said, the emotional cap table or the personal cap table. Who's on your personal cap table as far as the personal relationships are concerned, all that stuff, right? And, I look at that and make a decision and I go to the people who've got the most shares on my personal cap table. In this case, it's my wife and my children, right? My wife I consider, even though she knows nothing about startups, doesn't care really. I consider the chairman of my board and the largest shareholder and quite often my CEO. She's got the most shares on my personal cap table. And so I will go to her and I will say, okay, let her give me the feedback as all, board members have a fiduciary responsibility to do and say the consequences are piling up. The cost is so great that I no longer feel comfortable in being the board because we're not acting on behalf of the shareholders, et cetera, like my kids, it's all that good stuff. And so we need to make some decisions. We need to shut it down. And that's what a good board will do. People, proper advisors and members on your personal cap table, you want to make the decisions together with them. So you're going to know if you've got people close in your life who've got shares on your personal cap table and they're screaming, sending you signals and all that stuff. It can be tough. I get it. There's times that I've held on way too long and I've only exponentially compounded the consequences of these one-way decisions I was making. So that's one framework. Next, here's how I like to look at it as well. Say you're in this situation, You want to measure your joy effects. If you've run out of joy effects, what do I mean by joy effects? This is part of my ongoing thesis in terms of, what qualities I think, we heard network effects, brand effects, scale effects, embed effects. I think joy effects is going to be the single determining factor for the next unicorns, billion-dollar, trillion-dollar startups, right? And so I define joy effects as when you're intrinsically motivated to be together in strength, but especially weakness, right? Now, here's the thing. So say you're going and your startup's not going well, right? But you are intrinsically motivated and you still have the joy of celebrating wins. When there's a moment of strength, you got people around you and you're motivated to go celebrate the wins with them. You're like, yeah, small victories, I'll take it, right? But especially when you take the punch in the face and you get knocked out, for a standing 8 count, and you feel very weak. If you don't have people to go to them and you say, you know what, I had a real big setback, and it happens all the time. Invoking Startup Therapy podcast again, like, you could be the greatest founder in the world and everything you think, you've got the funding, you've got the technical expertise, all that stuff, but the timing or just something's off. You're not entitled to success, no matter how well equipped you are for that success. You can have the best chance of success. And I know many founders who are very well qualified to go do that, and it just falls apart on them for factors out of their control. And I hear these stories all the time. The fact that they're intrinsically motivated to come and share those weak moments, and I took the hit and it's not going well, I say there's still juice left in the tank. But if you are out of joy effects, there's no joy effects in your life, you do not have people that you're intrinsically motivated to be with them in your strengths, but especially your weakness, to me, you are a ticking time bomb. You are on borrowed time. I don't know, whatever metaphor you need to, you're on a crash course, head-on-head collision. You're wreck waiting to happen. You're one bad day away from completely catastrophic ruin because you don't have the emotional capacity. If you don't have joy effects, get out now, or at least stop for a moment, okay? And I don't know what that moment is. Might be years. I've spent times, I talked about how I went 2 years unemployed. I took those 2 years to build joy effects in my life, to build those emotional support, the people who are around me who are, with me, that I could celebrate in strength, especially weakness. Let's get back to the personal cap table. Let's say you got people in cap tables such as your spouse, right? Your partner. And you get a win. It's like, yeah, we just made $1 million, and they have no joy. They have no joy to be with you whatsoever. That's a sign, right? Because guess what? Money isn't the all-determining factor. I know lots of founders who've raised copious amounts of money, and I know founders who've made a lot of money, and they've skyrocketed. Oh my goodness. I have one story in my mind, but I'm not going to bring it up because it's so famous on the internet with, the YouTube crowd. And it's just, yeah. And I was the advisor on that at the time, and I saw it imploding. And the founder wouldn't talk to me. I'd reach out, hey, listen, if you want to talk this through, let's figure out a plan. The founder would not talk to me whatsoever, not motivated to be with me in their strength. Hard to talk to them when things were going good, but let alone weakness when they had an oopsie that completely ruined their startup. And they were making millions and millions of dollars, and it completely fell apart. If you don't have people who represent joy effects in your life, even when you're doing well, that's a sign. You should be thinking about it. So at least stop for a moment and build that up, or get out now. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. I keep referencing the Startup Therapy podcast, but it's so good. One of the most recent episodes was, when is the sacrifice just not worth it anymore? And you could be making millions of dollars and it's just not worth it. I know many founders, entrepreneurs who are in their 50s, and they are now regretting, they're estranged from their kids, alienated from their families, and they're throwing money and they're traveling the world doing these empty events, like, going down to Machu Picchu and, walking, temples and all this stuff. And they're trying to volunteer and all these things. And there's this emptiness, and it just wasn't worth it. They sacrificed the things that they held dear on the altar for startup success, and they regret it. And it's sad. To me, it's really sad. I don't want to go down like that. So JoyFX is another way to determine whether or not you should hang it up or at least stop and indefinitely suspend, which is what I did. One of the best decisions I did in my life. It was one of the hardest times of my life to go 2 years completely unemployed and then end up bouncing back, living to fight another day. So there you have it. So I hope this has been helpful. As always, join us at startups.com. You'd be surprised how many of us are sharing these types of stories. Startups.com, online, on-demand accelerator community of founders accelerating the founders. Encourage you to come check us out. I'm there, lead advisor. If you have any other thoughts, comments, please let me know. I always appreciate the feedback. Thanks for watching this video. Hopefully it was informative and at least encouraging that there is a way to think of it, even though it's kind of a somber topic. I appreciate anybody who's a founder. Just going out and showing up is just major kudos to you. Okay. Hope to see you in the next video.